And hello everyone, welcome back to another Trekyards mission briefing, your Wednesday weekly dose of Star Trek discussion. Free flow discussion with pre-prepared bits and bobs and ships and stations and pods and all these things. We do a discussion, we theorise, we sort of review in a sense, and we ask for feedback from you guys for the full episode later on down the line. But this is a special sort of month. We're releasing lots of special content this month. What are we doing, Stuart? And who's this by?
Well, today we've got one of the supporters for our Indiegogo Mission Canada by the name of Tom Blair donated, and what he wanted us to take a look at today in this mission briefing was a model or a ship that was done by Brian Pimenta way back in 1984.
Yes.
So after Star Trek 3. So I had never heard of this ship until this, and that's saying something because I know a lot about Star Trek history. So
this is the NCX-2701. And it was featured in the Starlog magazine, which is a pretty prestigious magazine, in 1988. So a couple of years after.
October 1988, if you want to look it up.
And we'll see the page in a second. And he built a physical model, a physical 4-inch model, which we'll also see. High detail, lots to talk about here, guys. But this is the first. This was in Starlog, and it's a great little 3/4 and a great side view. But Stuart, what is your thought about the Constitution class Mark III?
Well, I gotta just take a step out here for a second and go. Realize, guys, this was after Star Trek 3. The Enterprise just got destroyed. Yes. We didn't know what the future was going to hold for the Enterprise.
Remember, no TNG yet, guys. So there was just that era.
Yeah. So we've seen Star Trek 3. We knew about the Excelsior.
Yep.
And I prayed and hoped that they would not get an Excelsior, as was the rumor at the time. So apparently he didn't want that either because he designed this ship. So, yeah, this was an iterative step that could have been like the next third iteration of the Enterprise, because we had the Constitution class, the TOS one, and then the refit, and then this one.
There's an article on this ship that isn't in the Starlog, and he just says that in Star Trek 3, the ship was obviously destroyed, and this is a quote: "A great many of the fans were highly upset by this, but it had the opposite effect on me. Oddly enough, it spurred me to redesign a new ship that was entirely of my own imagination." So that's where it came from.
And here we have it here, and it's odd that I didn't know about this, because I know a lot about this kind of stuff, and this was brand new to me. So I'm actually looking at these pictures now for the first time. So this is amazing.
And what do you think, Stuart? Go for it. Knowledge, go.
At the time, I think I would have been really excited to have this as a prospect for the next Enterprise. Now, The profile's not that great. I mean, there's a lot of great aspects to it that we're going to discuss. We're going to go through each little thing. But overall, I mean, it could be a nice ship in the fleet in the background, but I don't think as the hero Enterprise I would be on board with it.
I've looked at some later pictures, and what's interesting, I think this ship is less than the sum of its parts. Some of its parts are really excellent, but you put them together, doesn't quite.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to say. And that side view is not very good. The scaling, the way the neck is, the bulk, it doesn't work. The 3/4 view I think is quite interesting. It's very clearly a Connie, Mark III, as it says in a minute. New engines, very. You can see the clear link with the refit. They're squared off, but they're thinner. They are pointier. They are more technological, I suppose, in terms of just things being added. And I guess you're moving one step forward with no grills, although the Excelsior had grills, so depending. One thing that confuses me straight away is the fact there's only one line of, like, the way the windows are on the saucer. That looks like a really small ship. If that's a normal window.
No, that could be 3 decks in there. You don't know. They could be all one-length windows, like just one solid window that covers 3 decks. You don't know.
You
could just
there.
Be design choice. Look, I don't think it's that small. I mean, because the bridge scaling doesn't work then if that's one deck, right?
So let's ignore that bit. Okay.
I don't ignore it. I mean, it's just it's interesting.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next picture, though. This is the actual magazine article from Starlog. Let's put it together. You can see he was a comic artist he tried to be, and then it says about all this thing. Not only did he design the first one, but he wanted to design Enterprise 71G after TNG came out. And it shows where I got the picture from. And it talks about how transwarp and stuff, and how the writer's guide said TNG is different warp scale, so it's nice that all that's part of it. I just want to show the full article. that was featured in. This is where it came from. But we did pictures of the actual model, so we can see some better detail stuff.
All right, so moving on to that model.
Well, sketches that model, first of all. Concept stuff.
Sketches next. All right, so this is actually a nice little sketch. I don't think this sketch translated to the model very well. The sketch is actually interesting and more sleek, a little bit more refined than that model was. The model almost seemed too clunky, like it was thrown together. But this I like. Now, one of the things that stands out to me instantly when I see this picture, I think the Vengeance from the JJ movie.
And we'll do a creative cut here, because I'm going to get the physical JJ Vengeance model I have. And we are back. Clear edit there. So I got the model, and this is the... Okay, let's get the right angle. I'm trying to work in 3 dimensions here. Right. So that is roughly...
Yeah.
I suppose the angle.
Yeah.
Does it look familiar, Stuart?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, the things on the side there, the round parts on the Vengeance, are on the bottom on this one. But it's still a square deflector. The model doesn't really show it off as much as I thought it would. If you look at the engines as well, there's a little reminiscent look of these, this sketch in the front of those engines. I mean, it's been altered and tweaked, obviously. But I can see this, even the main shape of the bottom of the nacelle and the top, as kind of being a design influence, perhaps, for the Vengeance.
Well, look at that secondary hull as well. I mean, it has the same curves almost.
Yeah. We'll see a better shot of the secondary hull, the side, in a minute. Right. But yeah, absolutely.
No, I can't disagree, which is an interesting... It's funny how you change a couple of shapes, and unfortunately, people design almost every shape you can for Star Trek ships, and so at some point someone's going to do a square deflector and this sort of thing. But it is surprising how much of that is absolutely similar. I mean, I agree with you. I quite like this sketch. It feels very advanced because of how thin those engines are. I mean, those engines are as thin as the struts.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. That is really, really advanced. Which kind of puts into odds with how bulky the secondary hull is, and especially the neck. I don't know. But it feels very advanced. It feels wafer thin, but very advanced.
Yeah, like this sketch, I really like this. I really like this. I think you bulked out that engine a little bit, the nacelle. I think it'd be a much better look. But overall, I think this was very well thought out, but just didn't translate well to that first model that we saw.
Well, I mean, there are lots more angles. So hopefully, we'll convince you by the end of it. But it's clear they've gone by adding a lot of details to the hull. I'm just going to throw details in to make it look more advanced. I mean, even the RCS thrusters have new components added to the edge. But let's go to the next picture, which is another sketch. So this previous one was final render. This is second render. This is an earlier version, which is worth saying. And again, very Vengeance-y. Very, very Vengeance-y.
Yeah, so this sketch isn't as good as the last one we looked at, but... I like the detailing on the bottom of the saucer. I like the secondary hull. I would have been very happy with that. The nacelle shapes overall are nice, but like I said, bulk them out a little bit.
It's kind of cool to see where he came from, sort of thing, a slightly earlier step. But the next view is first drawing, a side view. What do you think about that?
And well, the side view is where it falls apart for me. The neck sticks too far out. It looks too gangly and awkward. The nacelle struts are interesting, and again, this looks better than the model did as far as the nacelles go, I think. This works for me, but the model didn't. The neck is what really ruins the side profile for me, though.
But that secondary hull is so almost Vengeance. It's kind of crazy, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Just having it shrunken and thicker, or slimmed down. Although actually, the back looks like a phaser. Actually, it looks like a hand phaser.
Yeah, a little. Yeah. No, I really like the way that secondary hull looks. It's a nice kind of next step as far as shaped like the refit, but more modern. So we'll move on to the next picture, and this is the model again.
Yes.
Again, now I look at those struts from the side, and they don't work as well as they don't look as good as the sketch did. But it's interesting.
I mean, why not? I mean, what's the what about them?
They're too far back on the secondary hull. I think if they were slid forward a bit and the nacelles pushed back, it would work for me. But with where they're positioned and how they angle from the main part of the secondary hull backwards and then go up. So from the side, it looks like they're mounted way far back when they're not. That ruins the look for me, personally.
Well, yeah, both elements being sort of pushed out like that, both being sort of neck and the engines. I do quite like the design of the engines. We'll see better views in a minute. How the black portion then becomes the little fins at the back is quite a nice little detail. Cool.
Yeah. And here you can see more of a sense of scaling too on this model with the windows and the secondary hull and the neck.
Yes.
I think make the deck proportions a lot better. So I assume those things on the side are maybe the new sensor bands, because the refit had the stripes going all the way around the two of them. This could be new enhanced sensor bands that they're probably not windows. I don't know. Next picture. And this is a full orthos of the ship. This is cool. This is.
And this is where it says Constitution Mark III class. Interesting. And it's obviously after you finished the model and re-rendered it in a... Oh, look, the shuttle bay is underneath the hull. That's interesting. That's
There's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah.
Because on the bottom of the secondary hull, there's retractable photon torpedo turrets. And the rec deck is now in the neck of the ship, where the photon torpedoes used to be, is where the rec deck window is.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. This is nice. This is a piece of Star Trek history that's brand new to me, so I'm like really digging
and
this.
Yet it was made in 1984. I think that was the...
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, and the side view still doesn't work. Especially the source doesn't really work very well, and I can't tell if there's a little pointy triangle bit coming off the saucer. I can't tell if that's a scribble or an actual thing. But the saucer's way too thin at the top. It's like almost flat. Yeah, if you look at the front view, it's going up, but the saucer's flat.
Yeah,
that doesn't work for me.
No, none of these views work for me.
Well, no. Well, okay.
No, they don't. I mean,
That's not Stuart. That's not a good thing to say when you're doing a review. Say none of the views worked for me.
Okay, you want to know why? I'll go through each one why.
Please do.
The top view, the nacelles are too skinny. We've already talked about that, and the saucer is too far forward. It just looks wrong. I mean, if that saucer was pulled back over top of the secondary hull.
Then just like the refit, wouldn't it? I mean, those proportions you can fix with the refit, but then it's not, I guess, being its own entity.
See, the struts look good from the top because they angle back, but they angle back almost straight. So when you see it from the side, it doesn't look like the refit's beautiful angle.
Right.
So the front, it's too blocky. The nacelles and the same with the back. The bottom, again, you got that gangly thinness to it. I mean, the side's probably the best one, and if it wasn't for that neck, I mean, you fix the neck, and you can leave the struts the way they are, and I'd be fairly happy. Maybe you fix the top of the saucer, but there's a lot of issues. I love the big master crystal, though. Master dilithium crystal in the middle.
Strange. I'll talk about this in a little bit, I'm sure, but if this is meant to be the Mark III, so the original Constitution class was all circles, or spheres, or I should say, not spheres, tubes. And then refitted to be all rectangular things, very much the same shapes, just refined a bit. So this chap thought the evolution was going to pull everything a bit further away from the hull, shrink the secondary hull, thin out the nacelles, and make them a bit more pointy, and flatten out the saucer. I mean, I'm intrigued as to why. I don't know if he thought form follows function, if he had just a concept and then he designed it, but I mean, while there's not necessarily an evolutionary reason to go from Connie TOS, Connie refit to this, I don't see any reason why any of these changes are being made. especially considering the Excelsior is the next line of starships. So if you're going to refit a Connie, it should be getting close to the lines of the Excelsior, surely. Potentially. It's also a heavy cruiser.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thought it'd be interesting to know the size that he had planned for this, whether it was the same size of the refit or a little bit bigger. I think that would help a lot with our discussion. But he has tied in a lot of elements that have kind of been a mainstay. I mean, look at the bottom view. You've got primary hull landing gear. Got 3 of them positioned kind of funnily. So we just did our saucer separation episode not that long ago. And so this one, it's saucer separate. Although it does have the eyebrows that are carried over from the TOS Enterprise, which weren't on the refit. And on the secondary hull, you see the little circle and those shapes right underneath the circle. Those are all on the TOS Enterprise that were basically lost on the refit because the refit incorporated 360-degree phasers on the bottom. 4 of them. So I think the refit did. I know the A has those, actually. Actually, I don't think the refit does have the phasers on the bottom. But anyway, so there's lots of little touchstones to the TOS Enterprise and obviously the refit here.
So back to the real model. Okay, it shows the 2 crystals. It has a huge Enterprise logo, I suppose. It says 2. I'm assuming that's the shuttle bay, but we know it's at the bottom, which confused me a little bit. That's why it would say 2 on the top. But okay. What do you think?
Looks like a cheap Star Trek toy knockoff.
Oh, I was thinking the same. That's not the
like
side.
From Japan or something.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I mean, the placement of the registry is very odd to me. I don't like that. It looks like a CD holder. It looks like one of those, like when Star Trek 2009 came out and you got the Enterprise that was the CD holder, the saucer that popped open. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting here. It's kind of like a cheap CD holder knockoff thing.
It feels like the problem with the way we think of the Star Trek universe is that we think of it as this evolutionary step, development, but it's in the future. But then there's the future of the future of the future of the future. TOS to TMP to. So now, without any of the future knowledge and not a link to the show to keep it, I guess, consistent, he's now put loads of detailing in. He changed the colours. He's given it huge crystals that don't fit with the Star Trek aesthetic, really, but give it a very sort of like 80s, 70s vibe, just a sort of a techno vibe. That's not how the Trek universe evolves. It's simple curves. It's elegant. This is not elegant in any way. The refit is beautifully elegant.
I gotta interrupt your thought for a second because I just noticed something. You pointed out the number 2. If you look right behind the bridge, there's a number 1, and if you look on the rear of the nacelles at the top, there's number 3s.
Okay.
So I wonder if it's different parts of the ship. Primary saucer, like the first section, second section is the secondary hull, and then the engines can separate or be deployed, and they're part 3. Those numbers have to mean something the way that they're put on there. Unless those are just the main power sources, because you got the impulse crystal, the warp dilithium master crystal in the middle between the nacelles, and then the nacelles themselves. Because I was looking at the 2, trying to think if that was a second shuttle bay, like you said. I'm sorry for interrupting your thought.
No, it's throwing me for a loop. This.
And then I saw the 3s, and then I went hunting for the 1, and I can see it now. And they have to serve some purpose. Or refer to something specifically.
Is it the first multi-vector assault mode, perhaps?
I can't see that.
No. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, Stuart. I'm sorry. It
isn't. But going to your point, it isn't as sleek and simple and elegant as the refit. I mean, there's a lot of external bits that are like extraneous. Like, why are these here? Like, these could be hidden in the hull, or,
I think it shows you that we are so lucky that each of the Enterprises, even the XO1, captured something. Something that made it feel right. This ship has not captured that. It's doing the colouring and the shapes and just the bits and pieces don't fit into that same legacy.
Well, just the shapes here.
And that's nothing against the design. We're not trying to go against the design. It's very interesting.
No. But the shapes here, the paint scheme, the lines on the hull, the extraneous bits, to me, this says experimental test ship.
Oh, that's interesting.
Even with the NCX, okay? If you look at the orthos, it did say transwarp drive, obviously based off of the Excelsior. And if it's a smaller ship, if it's scaled smaller than the refit, which I could totally buy, it could just be experimenting with new propulsion. That's why the has that huge master, the lithium crystal, the new thinner engines. It could be testing this new engine design. I get, as an experimental ship in the actual Trek universe, I see this fitting with all that stuff on it. I can totally see it being that.
Well, let me add to that. What if, again, it was not meant to be this, but if we were retconning it back in, if this was the very first, because we know that NX Alpha, Beta, there's points, there's an evolutionary scale. What if this was the Transwarp Alpha? They said, well, what have we got? The Constitution class is the pride of the fleet. Let's make one of that space frame. Let's do that. Let's make it small. Let's build Transwarp. And then those tests were successful. And they thought, hey, let's build the first Transwarp ship. Like the NX-1 was the first Warp 5 ship. Let's build the first Transwarp ship, the Excelsior, so it's inbuilt, and then make sure that would work. Obviously, just because you can transwarp doesn't mean you can transwarp with that design. There are other things to consider. This could be the very first transwarp prototype ship, in which case it can look so odd and yet be so familiar. And the paint scheme can be whatever the hell it wants to be, because it's a radical thing. That I like.
Yeah, and it's experimental. Like, that paint scheme really takes me back to, like, the 60s, how they painted their test planes and stuff. And yeah, to have the bits of the engineering basically out on the top of the secondary hull exposed, so they're easy to get to with work bees and stuff if you need to make changes. I like that idea, actually. So there you go. This is now an experimental ship. We said so.
Canon.
Well, let's move on to the next picture.
Okay. Ooh. Huh.
As is right. I don't know why, but the first thing I think of is Lego. You look at that center attachment point, it looks like a piece of Lego.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, I do like the shape of the nacelles. I do like that design.
Yes.
I really do.
Yes. It doesn't need all the extra bits though.
No.
It makes it look less advanced.
Yes.
What is that bit in the neck that looks like blue? Looks like a transporter pad.
That's the impulse engine if you look at the orthos.
That's a weird design for an impulse engine, but okay.
Yeah.
Next picture.
Yeah, next picture.
More detail on the top of the hull. You can see the impulse crystal. I think this is the components off. I think that little three-pronged thing on the saucer is meant to be the cap that goes into the impulse crystal, because it is.
Are you sure?
Yeah, if you go back 2 pictures, you can see on the top there's a little glass thing with 3 pins.
Okay, well that's interesting because it also has a number 3 on it, which ties into the 3 on the nacelles.
Huh. Okay. Sure.
Although the square above it has an A on it, and the square on the other side has a B. Like, I think he was trying to explain things with that, which I'm not getting. Maybe
if you want to see the full episode, let's get Brian Pimenta, whatever his name was.
Pimenta, yeah.
There you go. Bad name is so good. I got it. Message him. Let's get him on the show. Let's talk about this. We love talking Trek. We love to hear people's thought process, because there's so many things on this that I think he would be able to say, "Oh, I was thinking this," and be like, "Oh yeah, okay."
Now, one thing I'm noticing here that I really want to ask your opinion on: what do you think of, like, 2701 instead of 1701 as the next step, instead of putting an A behind it, which nobody knew that they would do, to make it 2701 as in, like, the next Enterprise? I kind of like that.
It sounds awesome. Enterprise 2701. It has a really nice ring to it. I've never ever heard that as a thing.
I never considered it, but I mean, it makes perfect sense.
it's especially if wasn't there a point when they said the 1700s was that was the class of ship, there were different 170 or 17 something is the 1700 line of ship. So the 27 is the 27 line of ship.
I kind of like that evolution. And the NCX I like too.
Yes, it's like the NCX Icarus from Renegades. Although I'm so confused why the Enterprise is to the left and above. It's not showing it proudly it's Federation or Enterprise. I mean, that's the sort of thing which it's like a side thought. It's like with the Enterprise just.
That makes it feel more like an experimental one. I mean, I feel like after this was approved, the hull would be repainted, the registry would be put in the right place, and probably be NCC now instead of NX or NCX. So NCC 2701, the new Enterprise.
It has a really cool ring to it. It really does. Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the next picture. Here we got a shot of the side of the saucer.
Also, well done for the guy for actually building this. I'm not a physical modeler, just well done for actually building it, because that takes time and effort, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think of that bridge module?
It looks too small. I think... See, the sizing on this is difficult, like you said. Those things on the side, if they are windows, they have to span like 2 or 3 decks. I mean, the windows on the neck and stuff speak to the right kind of sizing for the refit. You know what I mean? But
well, okay. So this is say it's a smaller ship. I mean, if that entire bridge dome is the bridge, then it is a smaller ship. I mean, that is a distinctly, which I buy. That works for me. The windows are a window. They're a little bigger than they need to be, but they're windows. Then the windows on the side are portholes rather than full windows, or like submarine style. I mean, not submarine. I've got windows on submarine, but like a military craft.
Yeah. I never thought about that, but you're right. Yeah. I could see that.
But
that scales the ship way down.
Oh yeah,
half the size of the refit, or
Yeah, which makes the engines even more impressive.
Yeah, could explain why they're so skinny. They're not actually that skinny when they're. I don't know.
There's also a lot of lines. There's a lot of just lines on the hull. It's interesting. But the next picture shows it off even better. There's like panel lines, and it feels like there's components that they can just jettison, and warp core ejection hatches sort of thing.
Yeah, hold on. Let me take a look here.
And you can definitely see the 3 in the impulse crystal.
But hold on a second. And just to the. Where is it? Sorry. And is that another number 3 on the black part there? It's hard to tell. 3 or a 2.
I don't know.
To the right of the stripe. Anyway. Yeah.
That is quite a cool picture though, as a standalone bit of art. It's like alternate universe Star Trek, kind of like jet fighter Star Trek. Because if you take that as being a more modern military, it's got the Iron Man Stark power source at the back. Yeah. And it's got the sort of modern day building Enterprise-y thing. Huh.
Yeah. Now that you said that, that'd make an awesome piece of art to have on some admiral's wall. Experimental. Yeah. Cool. Next shot is the model still.
Now, what do you think about this compared to the original concept then?
The original concept worked a little better for me. The sketch, like I said, looks better. This is very interesting. I mean, we know that those are windows above the deflector.
We do now.
As the main rec deck.
Ooh, wow.
So those are big windows.
I mean, if you go by the size of the windows on the side, they're 3 decks? 4 decks tall?
4 or 5, yeah.
Which means
it's
not going to be that big. This is a smaller ship. That's like a 10 forward. That's like the rim of the saucer. That's like a big deck high window. That's just a deck. That's not like. I mean, come on. That's not a safe place to put 6 decks of rec deck. It's not.
Nothing's going to hit it. The deflector will deflect it out of the way.
It's not how deflectors work, but okay. What do you think of that deflection the way it's done that? I kind of like it. Looks like a vortexy thing. Well, I don't think square was the right way to go with that. It doesn't. There's it's stupid, I know, but there's certain the rectangles of the refit look sexy advanced with this continuing circle, but two rectangles just looks boxy, and it's so strange that that's a real thing. I know we're probably biased because we love Trek, but it doesn't. Yeah,
it's too much of a departure from the Federation aesthetic.
Well, that too. Or is it a natural evolution? Because the first iteration had the square nacelles, the second iteration advanced the deflector to be a square deflector. I mean, if he's only looking at those two, obviously had the Excelsior, but if you're only looking at those advancements, is that not where the way ships are going, to have the square part? So why wouldn't you make the secondary hull squarer?
Yeah, I can see why that decision would have probably been made or assumed based on the engine specifically of the refit. However, they're not squared off. They're not right angles. They're nice curves, very retro looking. So I like it, but it's not. If it was the Enterprise, I wouldn't be happy. Put it that way. It's an interesting take on a ship, but again, I see very small experimental craft here.
Yeah, I think we've sold that to the audience as well. Hopefully, although I have interest. If this had been okay, would you rather have had this or the Excelsior as the new Enterprise if there was the one or the other for Star Trek 4?
This one for sure.
Well, there you go.
I am not a fan of the Excelsior. Everyone knows this. The Enterprise B refit, yes, but I hated the Excelsior, and I still do. I would not want it to see it be the Enterprise, even though in the comics it was for a while. After Star Trek 3, they got the Excelsior as the new Enterprise. So
interesting. All right, so the next picture is the first, is the last. Back to the Starlog thing of the NCX-2701 by Brian Pimenta. Closing thoughts, Stuart.
Well, I've kind of said them all along. Interesting take on a Federation ship design for sure, and it was a nice step, a nice thing to speculate on what the next Enterprise would look like at that point in time. Which again is surprising that I didn't know about this ship, but as I've said, I see it as a smaller experimental kind of ship, probably testing new advancements in warp drive. That's why the warp components and those main master crystal thing and the impulse one are so big. It's like A, it's a smaller ship, and B, they're experimenting with new kind of drives and stuff. So if it's that, I buy it. If not, I would not want to have seen it, really.
And thank you so much, Tom Blair, for donating to our last Indiegogo to get our views on the ship. I think we went quite long on this special. Hopefully we did it justice. And really, when we get into the zone, we do analyse and we do think through a thing. So I hope we did it justice. And my closing thoughts, has a lot of potential. It's a very interesting Vengeance prequel ship. I mean, it really is. I think you could probably modify it with a couple of tweaks. It'd be a wonderful experimental, as you said, transwarp ship, the first of the kind. Very interesting place. It's kind of like the Bonaventure of the refit world. It's a bit off, doesn't quite work, but it's pretty interesting. That's it for this week. Hope you guys have enjoyed many of our looks and many more of our looks at fan ships. Those who have donated and sponsored these episodes, we thank you so much. And if you want to go to trekyards.com and email trekyards.com. Yes, that right thing?
No.
Trekyards@hotmail.com. Trekyards@hotmail.com. Wow. We do different addresses all the time. Let us know if you'd like to potentially sponsor and donate towards getting your ship or a ship that you've always wanted us to look at on the show. Just let us know and send us an email.
Absolutely. And if you like this video, please click like. Don't forget to subscribe. And please comment below. What do you think of this design? Experimental, did you buy that? I think it might have influenced the Vengeance. What do you think about those thoughts? Might have influenced one or two other fan designs. I'm not going to mention whose, but you guys can comment below, and we will discuss that in the comment section with you guys. And you guys always have great conversations down there. So,
and if you want to support the show financially, as we always hope you will, 2 ways at Trekyards.com. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Click that big donate button and give what you can for a one-time donation, or our monthly service called Patreon, which keeps the lights on, really, guys. We're so essential to get that money coming every month, just to help us spend the time to do these shows and every other of our 7 days a week shows. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and we need your support. But not just that, to help us continue to grow, because you obviously all want more and more and more. We want to give you more and more, but we need more and more. So if you can, please support, and thanks so much.
So until next time, everyone, keep them coming with the requests. We love looking at new ships, and we will see you in the future. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Conocons.
And we are out of here.
Transwarp. Bye, guys.
Experimental transwarp.
Yeah.
Go.